right, here we go. We are back. It is January, and as we are talking about getting into the root of hard conversations, you guys, we're going to dive into probably one of the most controversial topics is politics. And yep, we're going to talk
Especially
about
right
it. And
now.
actually, especially right now, we actually joked about coming onto this podcast and saying, you know what? This is actually something we don't talk about at the end.
Peace out.
Let's don't talk about the, peace out. But we have to, especially with this election. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like, at least in my life and my family, I've got how many? 12 voters in my immediate family this year, how it has just been a hot topic. And with the inauguration happening next week, let's just talk about some things. This might be a shorter episode. It may not, but I just feel like this is obviously some conversations people are having in their homes. Have not already. We had Thanksgiving and we had Christmas, and it's usually a time where some of these things come up. So
Yes. It's interesting. I'm listening to a book right now. I don't even know how I got this book on my Audible library, but I did. And it's about the Civil War. And it's a historical fiction. And what it really made me think of is how much of our political views are how we grew up. I mean, it's a young girl in this story who grew up in Virginia, but she went to live with some family in Philadelphia. And again, it was pre-Civil War into Civil War, how she viewed slavery because of she grew up in it. And then she went to another state where there were no slaves and her eyes were open to how wrong that was. And then she went back to her home in Virginia and tried to make a difference. And I thought, if we could all admit, starting to talk about politics, that so much of it is how we were raised. I mean, I was raised in the South, and so I was raised to believe a certain way. And as I've gotten older, my views have changed some, and I've challenged my family to rethink, and some of them have changed. Anyway, it's just interesting. I think starting there, let's all realize that most of the time, how you believe is so heavily influenced by where you grew up and who raised you. What do you think?
exactly. Yeah, we actually had a conversation in our home, kind of just said, all right, we need to just talk about this after the election happened. And one of the things that was said was, if there's differing opinions. If I were to walk in your shoes and live your life and go to the schools that you went to and had the friends that you had and watched and listened to the things on social media or the news or whatever, I would believe and think the same way you do, and vice versa. If, you'd walked in my shoes and you had my experiences in life, you would believe the same way I do. And I think that's where empathy comes in and understanding. And you're exactly right, Kath. Alicia, you have any thoughts on that?
I agree 100% with that. I think also not just how we grew up, how we were raised, but Carrie, what you were saying of what were our life experiences? What did we personally experience that has affected us on how we think and believe? Because I think that has a lot to do with it too. You can be raised one way and then have an experience and be like, wow, my family was completely wrong about this, because going through what I went through, it doesn't compute. It's not matching up.
That's such a good point.
Right. Do you feel like that is why this is such a hot topic? Because it is personal on some level?
I think it's a hot topic because it's so personal. And I think people on both sides are believing to their core that the way that they swing or vote is for the very best. No, it's people just, it's almost like we want the same things. We want freedom. We want safety. We want a good economy. But how they're viewing these are through completely different grids. And I think it is personal because people it's like they're saying, this is who I am. Kind of like with spirituality or religion, right? This is who I am. So if you attack that, you're not just attacking the view. They don't feel like you're attacking their view. They feel like you are attacking them. And that's where I think the core of this controversy really starts.
Right.
I definitely had some friends on Facebook the day after the election say, hey, if you voted for Trump, I need you to unfriend me. We can no longer be friends because of what you just said, Alicia. If you voted for what he believes in, then you voted directly against me as a person. And then you must not value me as a person. And I thought that was interesting. And then I also have friends who are just like, if you didn't vote for Trump, you didn't, or if you vote, you have to vote for Kamala if you care about life or if you care. And it is, I think it is so hard. Even as a voter, it was so hard for me, for me personally. And then to think about my children. Okay, if you have children who vote differently than you, how do you handle that? I think that's what we're here to talk about, right? How do you handle it if you have family members who believe differently than you do politically? And it did used to be hey, things we don't talk about. Politics, religion, agent weight or something. I don't know. But it was on that naughty list of things you don't talk about. Yeah, you don't talk about. But now we're about let's talk about it. Well, how do you talk about it?
Exactly. And that was the next thing I was going to say is that's why we're here, is to try to handle those conversations with respect, especially when they're deeply divided.
One thing I was going to say that was difficult for me, just trying to have conversations with people before the election is, and again, I saw this on both sides where people, they're having a conversation, but it's not really an open conversation. It's slanted of, well, if you don't vote like this, then you're really believing that. You're really making this happen. You're really like, I heard one lady talking to, so she's like, well, if you vote for Trump, then you hate my daughter. And I was like, wow, that's like a big leap. But because it's so personal, her, she feels that way. And I think if we can have those conversations without jumping to those, I don't even know what to call them, but like you just like jump all the way out there, or if you vote for Kamala, then you are, threatening our freedom of the United States. I like the people who are voting the way they are voting that way because they believe that that's the best thing from their viewpoint. Can we just agree to take out all of that kind of like underhanded, I call it the everybody loves Raymond's mom syndrome, right? Y'all ever watch that? And the mom,
I did not.
What? Oh, Carrie, did you ever watch?
I know they
watched some. Yeah.
Okay. This is homework for next week for you guys, because if you have not watched Everybody Loves Raymond, this is the quintessential daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship, right? And the mother-in-law is constantly kind of like being sweet to the daughter, but then really kind of underhandedly like taking jabs at her, like, oh, it's okay that your house is so dirty. I know you're so busy with the 2 children that you have. Kind of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are doing that with their conversations about politics. Can we just like agree to not?
Yeah.
A conversation is like, don't load it with that extra stuff. Just.
Yeah. And that's why one of the reasons why we're here is because we want to advocate for those open conversations. Be open rather than making assumptions. And this happened in my own home, making assumptions that because somebody voted a certain way that they believe 100% and they're on this side over here, rather than trying to preserve the family relationship and being open to hearing, oh, maybe I voted for him this way or I voted for her this way, but to be open. So that's why we're here. We want to just don't make assumptions like you were talking about, Alicia, about other people and why they voted a certain way. Go ahead, Kath. You have something to say?
I was just going to say, I think it's so important to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You started off with that saying that, if those experiences, but I think truly try to do that. Say, okay, I'm going to put myself in my 20-year-old shoes, my 25-year-old shoes, my 30-year-old shoes, for them to say, okay, I'm going to put myself in my mom's shoes or my dad's shoes. I think trying to see it from their perspective. Listen, I can see why people voted the way they did on both sides. It isn't even a far fetch for me. Absolutely. I mean, I can definitely see why people voted for Kamala. I can definitely see why people voted for Trump. These are big issues. They all are big issues. And I don't know the right choice. I don't think there was a right choice. That'll probably get some people's opinions. I don't know. I think that it's complicated. I think that it's not politics are not black and white. As much as we would love for them to be, I don't know that they are, or they haven't been for me. It has always been a gray issue for me on politics, and I've never landed in one spot. I just haven't. I've just it's a struggle, if I'm being honest. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a far-fetched for me to empathize and relate to someone who votes differently from me.
For real.
I've been able to do that, but I don't know if necessarily the other people are able to do that.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
don't
that's all
know.
we can control is how
That's
we
right.
respond. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with my niece Melanie, and I think we're all saying this, that for some reason this election just has it's more charged, and just people are so divided and just so emotional about it. And so feeling that and talking to her about this topic, she brought up, her own situation, and she can tell her story, but it's out there anyway. So I'm just going to mention a few things where she's angry and fearful, just like really scared for the future. She's a single mom of 3 boys, and she's been through the court system and had to deal with the patriarchy in our society, and that she's not being taken care of and protected. And so she feels like this decision, for her is personal, and it's just going to encourage her, putting her further into a bad situation that she's in and not being protected. And so I was like, okay, I can see that, like, and to understand that, like, from her perspective, and like we were talking about her experience, this is a whole different issue for her, and she's scared for her future. So just being mindful of that, and being mindful of why somebody voted different than you, and just being empathetic. Alicia, you said that word a couple times, just being empathetic. Yeah.
Grace and empathy. Those are,
for sure.
I
And
feel like those can fix a lot of things. 90%.
yes, absolutely. And you think about like this when we were voting younger, even 4 years ago, like social media and how the news and social media picks up on our algorithms and just feeds us the things that we want to hear. And I feel like it feeds the fear, it feeds the anger, and it's like,
Yep.
ooh, we got to pay attention to what we are allowing to put into our minds and our hearts. And is it causing us to have more of a divide and be more divided against our own family and friends? So the fact we are telling people to unfriend us, really, go guys, like, really?
I think as the older generation here in this discussion, I think it's key that we say, I love you. I'm for you. There's nothing that's going to change that. If we voted the same or we didn't vote the same, this is a safe space for you. And
Yeah.
And I think our actions have to show that. I think we've got to show that we are willing to love anyway. We are willing to fight for the relationship. If someone, don't let them unfriend you. If someone wanted to do that, say, no, I want to fight for that. I want us to be in a relationship. I want to learn from you. I mean, be willing to learn. Teach me why you voted that way. I'm willing to learn. I would love to learn more about what is so important for you and why you thought, Trump was the best. Teach me. What am I missing? I did that this whole election. I wanted to listen and learn, and I went seeking all different types of media and all different types of opinions because I wanted to hear from both sides.
Yeah.
And I think continuing that with our family. I don't know, just for me.
How do you handle it when somebody comes at you with, like Alicia was talking about, with those assumptions that because you voted a certain way, that means you believe 100% over here? Like, how do you handle that? Or have you had the situation where somebody comes to you and, like the friend, and just assumes that you believe and hate a certain group? Or, how do we handle that?
I don't think it's a quick answer. I think that it's going to be more long term. I think it's going to be a lot of actions. I mean, I think that, all I can control is the way that I treat people, really. The way that I love, the way that I show up. And I think if my actions are the thing that causes someone to pause, no matter, how you think I voted, but I pray that my actions are consistent and my character is consistent, that I love you no matter who you are. You are welcome in this place. I don't care who you love. I don't. You are welcome here. This door is open for you, and I will show up for you. I don't care how far you live. If I can make it happen, I'm going to show up. And when you get here, it's going to be a safe place if you come here. I don't know. I just feel like that for me, it's the long term. It's the I love you anyway. If you distance yourself, that's on you. But me, I choose you, and I choose to keep an open door and an open heart and an open mind to it all.
Well, yeah, it's great. Leisha?
I think that, just kind of echoing what Kathy said, it's if someone is choosing to push you away because of assumptions they're making, or even just if they know how you voted and they disagree with that, and they're basing their friendship on that. I mean, I'm kind of on the other end of it. I'm like, I can only control me. If you don't want to be friends with me because of how I voted or how I think, then maybe we just aren't friends. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to be kind to you. So I kind of have a flip. I mean, I'm echoing Kathy, but like I'm echoing Kathy,
but
like
not really.
but not really. Not really.
They're not really.
Yeah,
I'll show you the door.
I will
and give you directions to
100%.
Kathy's house.
I will 100% open the door. That is the part that I'm echoing with Kathy. I will 100% open that door for you every single time, should you want to come back, right? And renew the friendship. But I mean, this probably sounds harsh, but like I have to sound selfish. I have too much going on in my life to like people that don't want to be friends with me and who are unfriending me and this and that and all because of an election or a vote or things they're assuming about me. Bye.
Right. Without coming to you and asking you and having a open-ended conversation
for a short time, and they made an assumption. And so that's kind of where I think it gets tricky with our stepchildren and the in-laws is we've got to, they don't give us the benefit of the doubt necessarily. So they are quicker to make an assumption. So we've got to work harder to get them to understand who we are at our core and at our roots, even politically, maybe. Again, why we do that. So to me, those are the ones that are going to be a little more iffy. And the one thing that I'll say too is I think time does help. Time helps everything, in my opinion. Time softens things. And so sometimes you might need to say, hey, you know what? We're going to sit on this for a few months. And now here we are in January. It's not as fresh as the election. You know, let's give it 6 months and see how it actually happens once the transition happens. Are we just as upset about the election as we were? Or can we now have a conversation when we're removed a little bit from the height of the, all the stuff? So maybe just give it time.
Yeah, and where some of those fears that they might have of this is going to happen and this is going to happen, where it may not. And so, we can.
I mean, listen, I get fearful watching. If you watch social media and you watch the news, it is hard not to fall into fear. For me, it is.
Absolutely.
I find myself and having children, adopted from Guatemala and here. And I get nervous about some of those same issues. And I struggle with a lot of those same things. So I think it's a tough one. I think it's one that shouldn't break a relationship, though, with your children. But I think there is potential. I definitely have seen it this election more than others that people are willing to end relationship with family. And I am here to beg you not to do that. Just what Alicia said.
Yeah.
Families forever, if you can if it can be. I mean, we understand there are situations that it is you choose to break with your family, but don't let it be over politics. Please don't let it be over politics.
Right. Yes. And so self-awareness is a huge one when we're having these conversations, is recognizing where we're triggered, recognizing what topic, recognizing, is this the time to have this conversation about this? Am I feeling emotional, the day after, week after the election? Nobody should be talking about it. And now we've got the inauguration coming up. So it might just cause some of that to come up a little bit more now, and just to be aware. And then recognizing our own triggers, like, why are we so emotional about this? What is the topic that we feel so personal about it? But like you said, the reason is to strengthen families and to not put to win the argument, to get them to believe, or for us to get them to get us to believe what they believe. That's not the goal. The goal with you about it.
I
get that.
I welcome the friendship, but I am not going to chase it down. I'm not.
But what if it's
I'm
your
also
kids?
not going to be unkind to them.
But what if it's your kids? We're talking about our kids, our adult kids.
Um,
Are you going to do that with them? Or are you going to chase
well,
them down?
I hope my kids don't unfriend me because I will stop cooking for them.
And
That's true.
No, I'm
babysitting for them.
I'm just saying. I mean, kids say, yeah, family's different, right? Family's always
Yeah.
different. If
Well,
we
that's what I
believe
think this
differently,
is
we
about,
vote
right?
differently. Yeah, that's okay for us to do that. And let's talk about why I believe what I believe and why you believe what you believe. If we can't seem to have that kind of conversation in a healthy manner that's not charged with assumptions and attacks, then I'm probably going to opt to agree to disagree and move on. I mean, in another 4 years, it's going to be the same thing all over, and then in another 4 years, it's going to be the same thing. Like this election happens every 4 years. They're my family for life. My friends, I'm not basing my friends on how they voted or, what their beliefs are for that. I'm just not down for that. Sorry, not
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I love it.
That's my hot
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah. I love it. If somebody's not willing enough to have that conversation with you and actually understand who you are and why you believe this, that's a good friend. But if they're not willing to do that, then I get it.
Well, I think though, think more about those, like our in-law children, I think fall somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, they are family, but they haven't known us for the long haul.
Stepkids.
So and stepchildren, correct. I think they are, in my experience, they are quicker to make an assumption, where our own children who have grown up with us, in my experience, are willing to give us more the benefit of the doubt.
That is key. Yeah. I think that is key because we tend to want to just put our stake in the ground of this is what I believe and this is who I am and you're not going to change my mind. But so for us as the older generation to do exactly what you said, Kathy, to let it play out over time, to let what we believe play out over time, even though maybe, there are assumptions that we voted this certain way. So that means we believe and do and act all of that to choose love and to just choose that over time and just let our characters shine through. So I think that's key.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And choosing the right timing. Because do we have these conversations? Do we? Should we?
I think it depends on what your motive is for having it.
Good. Yeah.
And is it a grinding issue? Is it something that they're bringing up? I mean, I think that I don't go out of my way. We have kids that believe on both sides, and I don't go out of my way to bring it up with either party. Even if I voted the same way, I don't bring it up intentionally. But if it causes divide, then I say absolutely. Mm-hmm. But if it's not causing divide, listen, I'm okay with letting it roll off, and just everything doesn't have to be hammered out, and everything doesn't have to, as much as I'm like, yay, let's talk. Listen, on some of those subjects, if you can agree to disagree, I think that is okay too. I don't think we have to sit there for hours and kumbaya it out until we all,
right.
Because most of the time you're just going to end up with, we're going to agree to disagree. So if you can have a healthy relationship with your children and be on different sides, then that's okay. It is okay. We don't have to all vote the same or think the same. But if it causes divide in the relationship, that's when I think, yes, you have to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yes. And to add on to that is to look for a common ground. It's not, rarely do we all disagree on every single thing, but find that common ground. Settle in there just to show that there is unity. There is some unity here that we can agree on, and we both believe in the same thing. So finding that common ground. So what do we do when it gets heated? What do we do? Agree to disagree, like you said.
Just reassure them that your love for them is there and it's staying, and you're not walking away from it.
Unless you are, Alicia. Unless you are.
Well,
we're talking about family. We're talking about family.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they might walk away for a time, but again, I think that, and that's okay too. It is okay.
Yeah.
It is okay if they need a break. If it's too heavy for them, I'm going to give them permission for that. Just like I give them permission not to show up at the holidays. You get permission to feel how you feel. And if that's too heavy for you, then okay, you can feel that. But I'm here. I'm here. I don't, you can't force it beyond that. I don't think. You
Yeah.
can't say, you will be in a relationship with me and we will be close
Right.
no matter how you,
No.
you can't. And I think the more, because, we have large families, Carrie and I especially have beyond the norm. I'm closer to some children than other children. And it's just how it falls out. It's not any other reason. Some I don't know why. I don't know why. And that's okay too. You don't have to force. All of you will feel the same about your mom. All of you will show up the same. All
Hmm.
of you will think the same. I give my kids permission to be adults and give my kids permission to be how they want to be, to think, to feel, the relationship. I don't know, right or wrong. That's how I see it. They're
Yeah,
adults. They get to,
and they communicate differently, and some might
they
need to
do.
talk this issue out. Some may need to talk
Yeah.
about how they feel about
Yeah.
politics, and just to be that safe place to come to. Some are like, no, I'm good. I don't need to talk about it, or go talk
That's
about
right.
somebody else. So just to be in
Right.
that space for them to come to and be available to it. So we've gone through it. We've had the hard conversation to circle back, give them some space, circle back with, where do I need to apologize? Hey, just let you know I love you still, if we've had that heated conversation. And then maybe some
Yeah.
boundaries need to be set. Like, let's just agree that we just don't talk about that anymore. How about that?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, but we just agree to that. And then if somebody wants to have ongoing dialogue about it, again, show up with empathy and listening. And Alicia, any thoughts?
I think when you had asked, what do you do when you're in the middle of it, when it's heated? I want to kind of jump back to that. I think the first thing, whether you are the daughter-in-law or mother-in-law, younger generation, older generation, I think it's always wise to just take a breath and just distance yourself for maybe just like 10 seconds instead of react right away. I am really awful at that, but I think that's a really wise thing to do, because a lot of times when it gets heated, it's because it's personal. So if you can kind
Absolutely.
of step back from that and separate yourself and realize, okay, this is coming from somewhere, some root down that they feel very strongly about. I want to continue this conversation in like 30 seconds. Just pause and give it a break.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
That's a great way
Yeah.
to end
So
it. We're
good.
going to go ahead and end it on that's going to be, how about that be the small deposit for is just take a break, take a breath, think about where your emotions are. Yeah. It's good. Anything else to add, you guys, before we close it up?
Be willing to learn. Still be willing and open to learn. Don't think you have it all figured out.
Absolutely. And I feel like these themes are going to continue with our next
Yeah.
week's episode about religion. May not be
Religion.
that different.
Yeah.
So
I know. You're like, I think I just heard that conversation. Yeah.
yeah, so
Maybe.
we'll see you guys next week.